To all my wonderful subscribers, followers, listeners, students, and disciples, this is your Master GongSun, and this is another episode of Taoism as applied to the news. So, for today, I thought I would pick a human interest story. Frenchman journeys through Sandakan in search of his heritage. For 39-year-old Charlie Cheminay, stepping onto the streets of Sandakan felt like stepping into the past, one that belonged to his mother, who left this town 4 decades ago. Well, that's a long time ago. I have heard of this town. It is a city in Malaysia where I believe it's a Chinese Malaysian majority. Also Chinese people anyway. I would probably feel right at home here. Anyway, on his first ever visit to Sabah, he followed her memories, tracing the places she once called home while searching for his grandfather's grave at Red Hill Chinese Public Cemetery, a final resting place his family had never visited. Born to a French father and a Chinese mother, Cheminay grew up in Fontainebleau, France, far from the town where his mother spent her early years. Though raised in France, he speaks some Mandarin, which helped him connect with people who once knew his grandfather. His mother left Sandakan at 30 years old 1984 and lived in Hong Kong for a few years before moving to Paris as a language student, later becoming a reporter for a Chinese newspaper. When his grandfather passed away in 1997, the family attended the funeral, but none of them has visited the grave since. At his mother's request, Cheminay traveled to Sabah to find his grandfather's grave. He spent 5 hours searching the cemetery, hiring maintenance workers to help, but the area had turned into a jungle, with fallen trees making the search even harder. I see. Anyway, I won't read the whole thing, but let's see. He wanted to see the place where his grandfather started a new life after moving from Shanghai as part of the first batch of barbers in Sandakan. Interesting. See, growing up, yeah, then that's like for all of us, right? We hear stories about our elder relatives, right? Because I know my grandfather is from Hong Kong, my dad's dad, and he worked as a government contractor. Anyway, this is quite interesting. See, for me, it is because I feel naturally drawn to where there are people who speak the same language as I do, who have the same heritage, cultural and ancestral heritage, and who have the same cuisine, because this means that they would more likely understand me. So I feel a kinship towards Chinese Malaysians and Chinese Singaporeans. Anyway, let's see what else. I'll only talk to the most interesting parts. For many descendants of Chinese immigrants, returning to their ancestral homeland is more than just a sentimental journey, but also a way of reclaiming lost connections and rediscovering their heritage. Yeah, this part is important. Cheminay indicated he may return with his whole family to continue the journey of remembering and reconnecting with a land that shaped their roots. See, in Taoism, there is the whole concept of the source, right? And how we have to have strong roots. And that includes knowing where we came from, where our family came from. In one of the chapters I talk about, in the Tao Te Ching, I talk about the importance of grounding, of centering yourself in the earth. And that's actually one way to do it, is to look for your heritage. So even though this is not a extremely newsworthy or internationally important story, I believe this story is important for those who want to find the Tao. The first thing we should do is go look for our roots. And I'm actually very impressed that even though he grew up in France, at least he knows some Mandarin. By some, I get the feeling he's not totally fluent, but it's enough to like order and like ask basic questions. Because we all have varying levels of fluency in the languages we speak if we're multilingual. I mean, no one's completely fluent in several languages at once. I mean, you might know several languages, but there's always one that you speak the best. My point is that it's commendable that he even knows some Mandarin, because he has no connection there. And likely his mother didn't speak Mandarin. His mother probably speaks one of the dialects, maybe Cantonese or Hokkien, Fujianhua, the language of neighboring Fujian, which is next to Guangdong province. But I can think of lots of Chinese Canadians and Chinese Americans who are really bad at Chinese. So I'm sure this guy, if he knew enough to converse with the barber, then at least he knows the basics, which is more than what I can say for some of my fellow hyphenated Chinese. All right, anyway, very good. Looking for your roots, that's important. That is one thing that I would strongly recommend that all of my students do. They should go and research where they're from. Because we all have a connection to the past. A lot of us say, oh, the past, it's gone now. It's not important because it's not the present. But the fact is that what we do in the present has continued to be affected by the past. For example, there are certain traditions we do, and you don't know what they are. I mean, you don't know where they come from, but you know we do it every year. For example, Christmas, right? I mean, you know, like sure it's Christian, you know, but it has its pagan roots. The Yuletide, right? That's actually like pagan. So it's really interesting to discuss it because the past shapes our present, and to find that we have these roots that go back generations is very important because we are centered, we are grounded with that base, safe base of operations. You having that there, we can use it to go on to do what we want, to do great things. All right, this has been your Master GongSun. Thanks for tuning in. As usual, keep following the Tao.